بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أسأل الله عز وجل الإخلاص في القول والعمل. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون, that we have not created mankind nor jinn except to worship me, right? Worship Allah Azza wa Jal. That this is the core fundamental reason of why we are existing, why we are alive, and why we are here. And we know that there are levels and degrees to get to Allah's pleasure, or levels and degrees as well to of Jannah, of where we are in Jannah. And that is primarily judged not by our actions to get into Jannah, right? That no one enters paradise by his or her actions, not even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Walakin, there are levels in paradise from which we are put based off of our actions. Okay? So there are these levels of paradise and level of pleasure that we seek to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. The longer that we live, the more accepted deeds that we have, the higher our maqam, the higher our status is in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we get this primarily from the beautiful hadith of Talha, in which he tells us of the two men who came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepting Islam at the hands of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these two men were, in comparison, one strove for the sake of Allah, who really put effort in learning the deen and striving for the deen, to the point where he went for jihad until he reached martyrdom, until he died fi sabilillah. Where the other was not as much as the first. And he later died 1 year later, right? 1 year later. And so Talha, he has this dream, and he is standing at the gates of paradise, in front of these two men, until someone from the inside of paradise comes and accepts the second man who died 1 year later, And so the man, he enters, and then the same person comes out and brings in the first man who died as a shaheed, who died as a martyr. And then he came out again and told Talha, who was there in his dream, who told Talha, go back, your time has not come. At this point, Talha wakes up from the dream and he tells the people of his dream. And so news spreads, right? And it gets to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People are shocked, right? And so the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, why are you surprised? Why are you shocked from this? So the Sahaba, the companions, they questioned, Ya Rasulullah, the person who lived a year longer enters before the shaheed, enters before the martyr? The Prophet ﷺ says, are you surprised by that, when he was able to live 1 year longer, that he made Ramadan 1 year longer, that he prayed such and such amount of prayers? The difference between him and the martyr is the difference between the heavens and the earth. Or kama qala Rasulullah ﷺ in the authentic hadith. It's a very beautiful hadith. Right? So this man, in comparison to a shaheed, in comparison to a martyr, reached paradise first. He was able to enter paradise first because he lived 1 month, 1 year longer, that he reached the month of Ramadan, and that he prayed more, that extra prayers. Right? So this is a beautiful example of how living longer is a virtue, in that we are able to do more good deeds, that perhaps we are able to accumulate more accepted deeds, and therefore raise our status in the eyes of Allah and raise our status in paradise. So we as Muslims, our mentality is that we do not desire life itself, but we desire this life, in that it can take us to the next. That we desire that this life is used as a tool to get to the next life, and therefore where we are in paradise. Nevertheless, we are time challenged. As the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, "Umru ummati min sittina sana ila sab'ina sana." That the average lifespan of my ummah, of my nation, is between that of 60 years to 70 years. That is, that many of us will not live to see 100, let alone 1,000 years, as the prophets and messengers before us. So some may even say this is not fair, or some may say, well, what about the people who had more time before us, right? And this is Allah's wisdom in that He gave us and put us in the nation, in the best of nations of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the question or the thing to note here is that time is minimized. Time is minimized. So there is a way that we may still be able to earn a similar reward to those who have lived much longer than us, or maybe even more than that, right? Or maybe even more than that. But the question is, how do we first increase our lifespan? How do we increase this time that we may have? And we get this, of course, from the hadith of narrated in Imam Muslim on authority of Anas ibn Malik, where he says the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, "من سره أن يبسط عليه رزقه أو ينسأ في أثره فليصل رحمه." That he who would like for that his provisions be increased, or that his lifespan be extended, then let him join the ties of kinship. Now, some of the scholars or some of the ulama, they questioned this hadith, because how is it that someone's life can be expanded? How is it that someone's rizq can be extended if his life and his rizq have been set in stone, not to be changed, right? And we are even told this in the Quran, when Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ لَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ, that when their time is come, they will not be extended an hour, nor they will be brought early another hour. Every person has their moment of death at the exact moment, at the exact time. So the ulama said, how are we supposed to compare between these hadiths, right? Is it a contradiction? No. Rather, the ulama have said that what is meant in the first hadith, من سره أن يبسط في رزقه, that he who wishes to extend his lifespan, his rizq, let him connect the ties of kinship. That in regards to this hadith, what is meant is the barakah in rizq and the barakah in lifespan, right? The barakah in rizq and the barakah in lifespan. This is how we compare between the first ayah and this hadith, right? That Allah Azza wa Jal, every person's rizq, every person's lifespan is set in stone. There's nothing to change about it. But what may change is the barakah in your rizq and the barakah in your lifespan. Imam Nawawi, so he talks, and he talks about this idea of barakah in lifespan and this barakah in rizq, right? And we look at the people before us, how they were able to accomplish what they were accomplished in such a short amount of time. We look at the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who started his journey, his message at 40 years old, and a message that took 23 years, of which 10 was just proclaiming the tawheed, the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal, let alone the salahs, the zakah, the other obligations that we have as Muslims, right? So in very short amount of time, he was able to build an empire, a nation. And what about the people who after the Prophet Muhammad such as Mathalan Zakir Naik, a very well-known da'i, who many Muslims have accepted Islam at his hand by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. How is it that he was able to have so many people extended? On top of that, be a medical doctor. You look at other people, for example, Imam al-Ghazali, who produced many volumes of books, over 70 works. Or people like, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah, who produced over 300 works. How are these people able to do so much in such little time? So much in such little time. This is where the barakah comes in, not only our rizq, but our lifespan, right? That you may not live that long, but you may be able to do more than what someone who would live 500, 700, 1,000 years, you may be able to do more than that within 70 or 60 years by the will of Allah Azza wa Jal, by the barakah and the guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal. When we look at, for example, Laylatul Qadr, right? Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. That this night of power is better than 1,000 nights, 1,000 months. That is over 83 years, right? Many of us don't even live that long. But here the barakah is in this one night. And how many Laylatul Qadrs do we catch? How many Ramadans do we catch? Right? This is all part of the barakah that we have as the nation under the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The fasting of the 6 days of Shawwal, right? The beautiful 6 days that will equal to a year of fasting, the reward of a year of fasting, right? How no one has here, maybe one of you are challenging yourself, but who has fasted a year back to back? Almost no one. But here Allah Azza wa Jalla has given us this reward, this barakah in our time. But we just need to seek the knowledge so that we can gain that reward. And inshallah, this is the introduction to this series that of how to live longer with this shorter amount of time that we have, that inshallah we will continue for the weeks to come. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow us to do more with the little time that we have. May Allah Azza wa Jal put barakah in our time, and may Allah Azza wa Jal put barakah in our rizq, and may Allah Azza wa Jal take us when we are at the best of iman and when He is most pleased with us. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب ربنا إنك جامع الناس ليوم لا ريب فيه إنك لا تخلف الميعاد رب اغفر لنا ولوالدينا رب ارحمهما كما ربونا صغارا ربنا اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك السميع مجيب للدعوات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر وارحم أمواتنا اللهم اغفرهم وارحمهم وعافهم واعف عنهم واغفرهم وادخلهم الفردوس الأعلى من الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم تقبل منا رمضان اللهم تقبل منا رمضان اللهم تقبل منا رمضان ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما رب اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك